Christie made a career out of defending those that many would find indefensible: racists, Nazis, Holocaust deniers. For decades, Mr. Christie has been representing those accused of hate speech, people like Ernst Zundel and Jim Keegstra, on the grounds of freedom of expression. But he will not be able to do so for much longer. He has advanced liver cancer, and doctors do not expect him to live long. He fears that no other lawyer is willing to fill the void that he will leave behind. We reached Doug Christie in Victoria.
Hi, Mr. Christie. How are you feeling?
Well, not too well today.
What are your doctors telling you?
I have about 6 months, according to them, but it sometimes doesn't feel it.
What's your gut telling you?
Well, it hasn't spoken to me lately except to express extreme pain.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, that's the way it is.
You've done a lot in a career, but what you're best known for, I guess, is defending the free speech rights of those on the extreme right. Jim Keegstra was one of your first high-profile clients, charged in '84 and eventually convicted for teaching high school students the Holocaust was fraud and Jews were evil. Why did you want to defend him?
Well, because everyone should be entitled to express their opinions. I suppose it wasn't the appropriate forum. In a sense, I would accept the fact that government of any province can dictate what can be taught. What I think you said was somewhat of an oversimplification of the situation, but accepting what you say for the moment for the sake of argument, I don't care what a person's opinion is. And, I've said many times, free speech is the one thing you have to give to your worst enemy if you want to keep it for yourself.
You've represented Holocaust deniers, anti-Semites, alleged leaders of the Ku Klux Klan, and white supremacists, and I wonder why? What motivated you overall?
Well, because they're the only people these days who are under attack for what they say. I don't know, other than Little Sister's bookstore, I don't know too many people on the far left who've been hauled up before human rights commissions or charged with promoting hatred. These people didn't come to me, or I would have represented them too.
I wanted to ask you where you got that drive to take those kinds of cases some lawyers would shy away from. And, I half expect you to paraphrase that old story about the guy asked why he always robs banks, who says, because that's where the money is. Is that it? If you want to take on freedom of speech cases, you have to take on the cases of the people testing it.
Well, that's true, and they're not usually people with money. They're usually what I would call soft targets for the Crown, with the exception of the rather unwise decision of the Human Rights Commission to take on Maclean's magazine or Mark Stein. They finally went one bridge too far on that. That's when people began to question Section 13.1 in a serious way.
What are the cases you're most proud of?
Well, I think actually it would be the Finta case and maybe the Zundel case. The Finta case created a very important precedent that was contrary to Nuremberg law, or the Nuremberg trials principles, which meant that obedience to superior orders is a defense if those orders are not manifestly unlawful.
This was Imre Finta, the alleged war criminal.
Yes, the acquitted war criminal.
And you referred to the Ernst Zundel case. What about that? Are you proud of stuff?
Well, it was basically a case where I would think he was about as unpopular as anybody in Toronto could be made to be, with the exception of the people who actually knew him. I think Madam Justice McLaughlin made a very courageous stand for free speech in that case, and that's where we finally won.
There are those who believe you did the work because you sympathize with the politics of your clients. How often was that the case?
I don't know if it's ever been the case, really. I sympathize with every person who sincerely believes in an ideal, any ideal. And I don't mean someone who puts it on for some sort of political gain, and these people never did that by any means. So I sympathize with people who are persecuted, and I know of no people more persecuted than people in the position of James Keegstra or Malcolm Ross, or even Emery Finta or Ernst Sundell. They were the most vilified people, I think, ever to appear in the Canadian media.
Was there a personal price you paid for taking on those kinds of cases, Mr. Christie? A stigma? Were you ever ostracized, harassed for it in any way?
Oh, yeah. My windows were broken probably 15 times till I boarded them up. I've been spat at, I've been hit. You know, people have shouted at me on the street and death threats. One time a guy was flying around my house and he said he was going to crash into my house, actually.
Why do you think no one else is going to want to do the work that you've been doing? What do you feel will happen if no one picks it up?
Well, it isn't something that anyone else was willing to do while I was alive, with the exception of Peter Lindsay. And I don't know there'll be a whole lot of people willing to do it after I'm dead. But, you know, it's essential, in my opinion.
You mentioned some of your triumphs. Do you have any regrets?
Only that I couldn't carry on with other cases that are in the works now. I know that people that I've defended need help, and I feel like I'm going to be letting them down.
Mr. Christie, thank you for speaking with us on As It Happens tonight.
It was a pleasure to speak to you.
Bye-bye.